Welcome to the Medium in the Middle podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie, the medium in the middle. This podcast is going to walk you through my journey into mediumship and how I came to realize that I could communicate with souls that have passed over. My adventure started just over a year ago when unusual situations started happening to me. It wasn't until I really started to pay attention to them that it all started to come together. I wrote down everything that I was experiencing this past year in a little black book, and this podcast is going to be a recap of all of those memories leading up to where I am today in my mediumship journey. I will be releasing new episodes every Tuesday, and I recommend listening to the podcast in order, starting with episode 1, as my story will unfold more week by week. If you would like to stay connected with me, follow me on Instagram at Medium in the Middle. Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 12. Thank you for tuning in and listening. If you haven't already, please press the subscribe button. It'll let you know when I release new episodes every Tuesday. And if you are on iTunes, if you could leave a rating and a review, that would be incredible. Thank you very much. So let's jump into this story. So if you have been following along, in last week's episode, I talked about how I went home and I was telling my family about what was happening to me. I was letting them know I thought I was a medium. I had been connecting with these souls that had passed away. All these weird things were happening to me. I was telling them all the stories that you all have heard from the podcast. So in episode 11, I talked about how on my drive to Windsor, I called my cousin and I told her about this woman whose name ended in na and who I thought was connected to her, and I was giving her all this information about this woman. And her family ended up coming to my house, and well, episode 11 happened. If you don't know about what happened and you want to know the story, please go tune in to episode 11. But we're going to call my cousin that I called on the phone, and my cousin that came to my house that day, Jessica. So in the last episode, I didn't give that cousin a name, but I am going to name her in this episode so things don't get confusing, and we're going to call her Jessica. I did mention back in episode 1 that I have changed the names and relationships of people just to keep everyone's identity private. So that's probably the hardest part about recording this podcast, is remembering everyone's fake name. And then when I see them in real life, not calling them by their podcast name, but by calling them by their real name. Okay, so kicking it into this episode, we are the day after episode 11 happened. So my entire family came over, and then the next day I was going to my cousin's house, Jessica, and she does eyelash extensions, and I wanted to get my eyelashes done before I moved. So I was at her house getting my eyelashes done. So I'm laying on the bed, and we were talking about what had happened the day before, and she was saying how it was so crazy and how she wouldn't have never believed it, but then it happened to her, and how can she not believe it? And she was kind of surprised that she believed me, and also about what had happened and how would I know her name was Marina and different information. So we were chatting. Getting her eyelashes done takes about an hour and a half to 2 hours, so we were laying there for quite a while. Anyways, she was telling me that the appointment she had before me was for her friend Katie. And she was telling Katie everything that had happened the day before. So she was sharing with her the story from episode 11. So while she was doing my eyelashes, she was telling me about how earlier she had told Katie, and Katie thought it was so cool, and they were talking about it. So then she told me that Katie had brought something up that she wanted to bring up to me. She said, "We have this mutual friend named Sabrina, and Sabrina lost her mom about a year ago, and Katie thought it would be a good idea if we invited her over to my house tonight and see if you could get her mom, because she's been in a really bad state ever since her mom passed away, and we think that maybe this will help get her out of her funk." My immediate reaction to Jessica was no. I was like, "What are you going to do, Jess? Invite this chick over to come sit on a couch with me in hopes that her mom will come through when I don't even know if I can get her to come through? I still don't know how to get spirit to come when I want them to. It's getting a little bit better, but it's still kind of random. And even still, I can't get specific people. And that's just weird and awkward. No, you're not inviting her over. We're not doing this tonight. Just no." So needless to say, for the rest of my appointment, my cousin was trying to convince me that it was a good idea to have Sabrina come over. She even called Katie, and her and Katie were trying to convince me that it was a good idea for Sabrina to come over. And I just kept saying, no, like this is so awkward. It's late now, like it's 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. We're not going to have this girl come over on a work night, this is just weird. I feel uncomfortable. I don't want to do it. And what if nothing happens and this poor girl, I just don't think it's a good idea. So Katie's on the phone as my cousin's doing my eyelashes, and she's like, well, I'm going to come over and we'll just see what we decide. So when I'm done doing my lashes, Katie's over, and again, her and my cousin are trying to convince me that we should invite this girl over and let's just see what happens. So at this point, they're no longer listening to me, and they've just decided that they're just going to invite this girl over, and they're going to see what happens, and they're going to give her the warning before she comes that something might not happen, but something happens. But she really wants to come because if there's any hope that something could happen, she was really interested in connecting with her mother. So I said, okay, fine, invite this girl over, but I'm going to go downstairs and talk to the other cousins. I just think it's going to be really awkward if I'm just sitting in the living room waiting for her at 10 o'clock at night. Like, this is just weird. So they said, okay, fine. And then whenever you feel ready and comfortable, just come upstairs and we'll talk and it'll be normal. Like, if nothing happens, it's fine. But just come upstairs and we'll talk. So I go downstairs and I'm talking to my other cousins. Like I said, they're a family of 5. So there was many other people that I wanted to see that lived in that house. So I'm sitting downstairs and I'm kind of telling those cousins about what their sister is kind of scheming and how this girl is coming over and hopes to talk to her mom, but I don't know if I can get her to channel through, and I'm nervous and I don't want to go upstairs and the whole thing. And we were just catching up and chatting. And then after a little while of being in the basement, I felt kind of rude that I was sitting downstairs when this girl was here to see me. And, the at least I could do was try for her. If she wanted to try to connect with her mom, I could at least just sit in the room. So I went upstairs and I sat in the living room with the 3 girls. So at this point, it's Jessica, Katie, and Sabrina. And we were just all talking very casually. It was very normal. I was actually surprised about how normal it was. She was just talking about where I'm moving to. I was talking about her. We were talking about another friend, gossiping, things like that. And then it kind of came up about what I do and about the stories that have been happening to me, about how I think I'm becoming a medium, about how I have been able to connect with people who have passed away. And she kind of said, yes, I would like to talk to my mom if I could. So then I kind of gave her my little speech about how I can't get certain people to come through and I don't want to disappoint her if nothing happens. But if something does happen, I'm more than happy to share any information that I get. But I just didn't want her to have this expectation. And she said, okay, no problem. I'm just here to try. The worst thing that can happen is nothing. The best thing that can happen is something. So while we're all sitting on the couch, I started to get this feeling. And it's the feeling that I always get. And I'm used to it now. So I thought, okay, well, I'm getting a woman, so maybe this is her mom. So I kind of gave the look to my cousin, and my cousin's like, who's here? So I say, okay, I have this woman here. She has medium length brown hair. She's an older woman, and she kind of looks like a grandma. And I turned to Sabrina. I said, would that be your mom? And she said, no, that isn't my mom. My mom didn't have dark hair. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm like, this woman is with a small boy and she seems to be dropping him off at school, and the boy has a short brown hair and it's like a bowl cut, and he's small, he's maybe 7 or 8, and this woman died more recently. So as I'm describing this woman and we're all sitting there together, Katie kind of suddenly looks over to me and she says, oh my gosh, I know that woman. And I was like, oh, okay. And I kind of explained the details again a little bit slower. And she said, yes, that is the grandma of a boy that attends the school that I work at. She said she always used to drop him off, and she hasn't recently. So Katie said, I was literally just asking about why the grandma hasn't been dropping him off anymore, and I found out that she had just passed away from cancer. And I said, oh, okay, that makes sense because she's dropping him off at school. And I said, the little boy, he's small, he's cute, he has this bowl cut hair, and he has a blue jacket. And her eyes kind of go wide. She's like, she does have a blue jacket. So I said, oh, okay, well, that woman must be for you. And she said, why would she come to me? I don't understand. Like, I didn't really know her. I just saw her dropping her grandson off at school every day. And kind of like, wow, like I wasn't expecting anything just sitting here on this couch. And I was like, I don't know. This is kind of how it works. I don't really get to pick and choose the information that I get or the people that I get to talk to. So then we all start talking about how crazy that little experience was and about how Katie really wasn't expecting to hear from anyone. They were all kind of here for Sabrina. And I just explained that this is kind of how it happens and it's always random and kind of detailed like that. So a few more minutes later, I start to pick up on this other woman. And I said, okay, so I have another woman that's like coming through, stepping forward, however you would like to say. And this girl is skinny and taller, and she doesn't seem as old as the last woman. Maybe she's in her 50s. And she has long blonde hair, and she has an oval face. Like, her oval face is really standing out to me. Her face seems long and oval shaped. I said, could this woman be your mother? To Katie. And Katie starts crying, and she turns to Sabrina, and she says, I don't know. I don't know. Did my mom look like that? And Katie starts yelling, yes, your mom had a skinny oval face. She had the blonde hair. And she's like, my mom did have an oval face? She was in shock, I believe. So Katie goes into her phone and she starts showing me pictures of Sabrina's mom. She says, is this her? Is this her? And I was like, okay, it looks like her, but a little younger. It looks like her, but she has a little bit more weight on her. And she said, yeah, this is a photo of when she was sick. She died of cancer. So she had lost a lot of weight by this point. And I said, okay, well, she looks like that, but heavier. So before she was sick, I would be assuming. And yeah, her face is long and oval and her hair is long and blonde. That's her. So I really want to go back into my little black book and get the details of this. So I have written down here that I had said to Sabrina, she was a 55 to 60-year-old blonde lady who passed away quickly and tragically. So once we have confirmed that this is Sabrina's mom, I start to get into the details of what she is telling me. So I start off by saying, your mom is showing me you crying in the shower. I kind of feel like you're crying everywhere, but in the shower is where you really cry. And she kind of looked at me and she said, I cry all the time. I couldn't even tell you if I cry in the shower or not. And I said, okay. I'm like, I think this is just your mom's way of letting you know, like, she sees your hurt. She sees your pain. And then I'm like, she's showing me this house and there is a beige and brown garage on the house. And I feel like I'm walking up to this house that has the beige and brown garage, and I'm going into Thanksgiving dinner. And Thanksgiving had just happened 2 weeks prior. And I said, at Thanksgiving dinner, there's this long table, and there's a boy, and there's you, and there's like an empty seat beside you where you're at the end of the table. And I said, your mom's sitting right beside you. She's kind of showing me everybody at this table, and she's sitting beside you at Thanksgiving. So she wants you to know that she was with that whole family at Thanksgiving dinner. And Sabrina confirmed that she was at the edge of the table and she was sitting beside her dad, and that would all make sense. And then I said, and she also wants to talk about, I feel like she has one sister who really looks like her. And then she also has one brother who she was closest to. So I feel like I'm really close to this one brother, and then I have a sister that really looks like me. And she said, yeah, she had a twin brother, and one of her aunts does really look like her mom. And Sabrina's mom said to her, she said, I feel like you can't look at my sister because every time you look at her, all you see is me. We look too similar, and you're having a really hard time talking to your aunt or even looking at her because your anger comes up that I'm not here anymore and all you see is me and her. She says, I need you to let that go. That's my sister. She didn't do anything wrong. I know she looks like me, but you can't become angry every time you see her and stop talking to her. She's still family. Then she went on to tell her daughter that she needs to stop holding the guilt and the blame and the anger, but holding it against other people. I said, I feel like someone asked me to dinner, I say no. Someone asked me to come over on Friday, I say no. There's a birthday party on Saturday, I say no. It's like I won't do anything. I won't go anywhere. My life is over. I won't do anything. And Sabrina's like, yeah, I don't want to leave the house. She's like, I'm miserable. I don't want to do anything. So I said, your mom is doing this reference as if you're under a brick house, but you need to start taking off the bricks. So it's like you're living in a brick house and the brick house fell down and crashed on you. And now you're stuck under all these bricks and you slowly, one at a time, need to start lifting the bricks off. You need to do something to start your healing. She said, your hands are free. You can lift off your bricks, but only you have the power to do that. She said, start with the small things. Start with just going to coffee with your friend. Start with going to the grocery store on Friday night. But you need to do something. She said, I want you to start your healing process. I don't want you to be this angry and sad all the time. I need you to start healing. You have to do this for yourself. I'm gone, but you still have a life to live. And then I started to get emotional because I said, your mom is crying because of the pain that you're in. She said she feels your pain, she sees your pain, she sees what you're going through, but she's hurt just as much because it's all because of her death and her passing. Her really big message here was that she needs to start leaving the house. She needs to let people come over. She needs to let people help her. She kept saying, start removing the bricks one by one. The small bricks are how you're going to start. You need to start your healing process. She was very stern in her message. And then she started to talk about her and her husband and about how they kind of live separate lives, but how it worked for them. She wanted to kind of go into more marital advice. And she said, your dad and I live separate lives, and that's what worked for us. But that doesn't mean it's going to work for everybody. So I can't have you looking to our marriage for advice or how it should be when what we had doesn't really work for everybody, and you need to find what works for you. So she said, in your marriage, you're going to need to find what works for you, because what worked for me and dad might not work for you, might not be the thing that you need in your life right now. She said, you need to go and find that. She said, I need you to stop saying, well, mom and dad used to do this. This worked for mom and dad. She said, you need to let that go because our relationship was so different, and what worked for us might not work for you and your husband right now. And she kind of confirmed, she said, yeah, me and my husband are trying to find a way to make things work. And all I know is how my mom and dad worked. And that's really unconventional. And she was kind of going through this difficulty. So after all of this was said, I started to burp. And I let her know that when I start to burp, that means that the soul is leaving. And that's kind of my body's way of releasing the energy. And that her mom was now gone. So the tears have kind of slowed down now. And we just started to talk about what her mom was saying. And I said, did that all make sense? Like, your mom seemed to have wanted to tell you that she was at Thanksgiving, that you need to start your healing process, about what's going on in your marriage. And she was like, yeah, that all makes sense. Like, thank you very much for the messages. She's like, I didn't know what to expect coming here, but that was way more than my expectation. I don't know how you knew some of the details that you knew. Like, I definitely was not expecting half of this. So this has been incredible. So at this point, it's getting late, and as I said, it was a work night, so the girls decided that they were going to leave. We all parted ways, and then it was just me and my cousin left, and we were just kind of talking about how crazy that was, and she was really happy that her friend did end up coming over because she really thinks that she needed to hear those messages from her mother. She said, we can tell her as much as we want that she needs to start healing, but when she heard it from her mom, she's like, I think that she'll actually listen this time, I think she'll maybe start her healing process. The next day, after the messages had some time to sink in, Sabrina messaged my cousin Jessica and thanked her for having her come over and for meeting me and for giving her the opportunity, and that everything kind of worked out really well and she needed to hear that. And something surprising that she told Jessica was that she doesn't really believe in mediums, or she doesn't kind of believe in this kind of stuff. So she was really surprised that she heard information that she needed to hear and the details were accurate enough that she was kind of believing now. And I thought that was interesting that she would even come to my cousin's house knowing that this was a possibility if she didn't really believe. So that was an interesting fact for me as well. So that's it for episode 12. I went home, I told my family, I had lots of experiences with them, and now kind of everybody knew. And I'm heading back home where I will be packing up all my things and moving to Banff in just a short week. So stay tuned for episode 13 where I will tell you what happens next. And if you want to stay connected with me, again, please press subscribe. Follow me on Instagram at Medium in the Middle. All right, until next Tuesday, see you guys later. Bye.